power on.
The following is a presentation of the Sovryn Tech podcast feed.
Woo! The man of tomorrow is here, and I had what I am sharing with you. I had the great honor of once again. In fact, this might be my third, fourth, maybe fifth appearance. I don't know. I think I've actually lost track over the years. But I had the great pleasure of being on Declare Your Independence with, of course, Ernie Hancock, the one and only Ernie Hancock. And this was end of October 2021. I want to say it was the 29th that I was on. And we'll get to that audio in a few minutes. But Ernie, when he reached out to me, and it had been a little while since I had been on, probably, 3-4 years, admittedly. I mean, it's impressive, right? I want to say Freedom's Phoenix. Of course, that's his website, freedomsphoenix.com. Definitely check that out. I mean, just the raw amount of stuff that's on freedomsphoenix.com. Hell, Sovryn Tech still gets advertised on there, which I'm so honored by. Anyway, so Declare Your Independence, which is the name of his podcast, has been going since 2005. That's amazing to me, right? Like that's, I mean, that's like almost in twit territory as far as how long it's run. I mean, there's days where I think Sovryn Tech is impressive for having run for 10 years. But then, then you get into Declare Your Independence and holy shit. Anyway, so yeah, amazing that it's been around that long. And again, I was really honored to be on again. But so Ernie reached out to me and, it said, hey, there's a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about VPNs, what's going on with VPNs. And I want to expand on that a little bit in this intro here. But then also he wanted me to talk about some new kit, which he is actually purchasing for me to test out. Now, I'm honored when this happens. A lot of times, or not a lot of times, but often, on occasion, people will, will buy hardware and either they want me to give it to them, but they want me to test it out, however it works, and they want me to put it through the paces. And I'm always honored to do that because a lot of times it makes for great show content on my end, even if I don't get to keep the hardware. But sometimes I do. Like I was afforded the opportunity to test out a Pixel 6 recently, which I will be, doing a whole show about. But anyway, I knew he wanted to talk about the VPN thing. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the intro here, like I said. But the T-Beam device, which is a LoRa, it works with Meshtastic. I'm going to talk about that more in the future. You're going to hear Ernie talk about it during the episode, and I'll give some speculation on it. But at the time that we recorded, I hadn't even seen or really looked into it or seen the video on it yet because... well, whatever, communication is what it is. It's why we got to use things like T-Beam. But that will be upcoming, and I will be testing that out. And certainly Sovryn Tech listeners will know about it. And I know Ernie's going to want to have me on his show again, on Declare Your Independence again, to discuss whether it's a pass or fail. Does this work out or does it not? Is this viable? And, we'll get into that. So I'm not going to expand on that conversation here. I will link in the show notes to two things. One will be the video that he wanted me to watch about the T-Beam device. But then I'll also have a link, which is what I'm about to talk about, that references what's going on with VPNs that he really wanted to, have me on and talk about. Now, when you listen to the episode, it could come off as... not that it was said, but I think the sense could come off that I'm saying, or, that we're saying, don't bother with VPNs. They're all bad. That's not true. Okay. Neither of us said that, but that's not true. I think it's incredibly important to warn people when a VPN, maybe isn't playing for the right team anymore, right? Isn't about empowering the individual or being consumer centric, consumer facing. But, the technology that is a VPN, a virtual private network, is something that still has its uses. Okay. Now, I would never, ever say that a VPN is going to protect you from, state actors in any way. It's just not. I mean, there's ways you could, run a VPN that would certainly do better for you in protecting you from, all kinds of, malicious actors and, attack vectors and so on. But in general, I would not say that a VPN is somehow protecting your privacy whole cloth. It can protect you from certain parties at a time, say ISPs, telcos, and some others. It can do that, but it's not going to protect you, again, from the NSA, from nation state actors, and certainly from bad actors that have the prowess and some of the technology and capability that state actors have as well. Nor is a VPN, in my opinion, really going to protect you from, say, one of the tech giants, right? Now, the news that I linked to in the show notes for this, that Ernie wanted me to comment on, was about a company called Cape Technologies, and that's with a K. Cape Technologies, which previously was a company called Crossrider. Now, you'll hear me talk about that more in the episode, so I don't want to really recover ground here. But the concern is that this one company, Cape Technologies, owns ExpressVPN now, which is probably the largest or at least most popular VPN out there because it's promoted the most, on YouTube and everything. I mean, Angry Video Game Nerd does, little bits about it and all that, which, let me comment on this. If I haven't said this before, I know I've said this before. This drives me insane that I'm glad VPNs will let you see geographically protected content. Okay. I am so happy that that's possible. What you can watch in Netflix in one country, you can't watch in another. But if you use a VPN, you can do it. And I think Netflix doesn't do a whole hell of a lot about it because they like that you are still spending more time on Netflix proper, right? Whether it's, through a server connection in Canada or in America or Britain or wherever. But every fucking time that whoever, Leo Laporte, Angry Video Game Nerd, I don't know, go down the list of them because they promote on all these shows with all these big names. Every time they promote watching geographically blocked content, isn't that illegal? Right? I mean, to me, it just proves we're all anarchists, at the end of the day. Because, if you are a law-abiding citizen, you should be saying, well, shit, it says I can't watch that in Canada or I can't watch that in the United States. I better not do it. Right? You are disrespecting, disregarding, breaking IP law. You are breaking copyright law every time you use a VPN to access geographically blocked content. You bunch of fucking criminals. Now, okay. Obviously, I applaud it. I think it's wonderful. Break the laws, break the rules, do it. Okay. And let technology empower you. But I think it's hilarious when, these are the same people who are like, go get fucking vaccinated, because it's the law, go do blah, blah, blah. They're flouting the law every day. Like, even in their advertisements. And it bothers me too, because, Sovryn Tech in 2021 has had a hell of a time. I don't know how the crosshairs got put on this show to an even greater degree. But I've had issues where multiple payment processors have said, hey, your content breaks our terms of service and whatever else. And I don't know what the fuck I said. And these are people that I've been using for not just Sovryn Tech, but even like my video games and other things. These are payment processors I've been using forever, Years. As long as this show's existed. And I'm getting banned over and over and over again. Why? Did I say something against the law? I mean, anybody who's promoting a VPN for the purposes of watching geographically blocked content, which is the main thing that they want to talk about, because somehow that's more palatable to talk about than allowing your ISP to see your, to see your search history or, your internet history overall. I don't know how that's not the more palatable message, but whatever. But you've got these huge names that are openly flouting international law and nobody goes after them. YouTube keeps running them. Whatever, payment processors that XYZ uses, there's no issue there. It's so crazy. But what they're talking about in many ways still works. And I think that it's valid and viable. So again, I'm complaining, but then also I'm really not. I'm glad that everybody's breaking the rules. Get used to it, because the rules are just going to get worse, and, breaking them is just going to become more commonplace. And, I think that's only a wonderful thing. But again, I mean, let's circle back on this. So useful things for a VPN, to do are, watching geographically blocked content. Sure, that's great. Another useful thing to do is, you might try downloading from varying hosting services, right? You think like TurboBit and some others, and they'll have rules where you can only download one file per hour or even per day or, per 24 hours or whatever. But if you, cycle through the servers that your, the connection points that your VPN service allows for, you can break that, right? You can say, well, no, actually I'm a completely different IP coming from a different server. And, I'm going to download this now. Right. And that's great. That's a valid thing to use a VPN for. That has nothing to do with being concerned or hiding what you're doing. Right. It's just a technological solution around downloading. So that's a fine thing to do with a VPN. Another thing I think that's, it can help thwart against your more run of the mill, attacker, as in cyber attacker, right. Or cyber attack in general. It can certainly help with that. Again, it can keep your ISP or, telco, right, like Verizon or whoever, from seeing what you're doing. I think those are good things. Now, I mean, where would I, so, those are like the really viable options for that. You could get into, well, I run a VPN. I mean, people also use VPNs to allow you to access, a work server, right? I mean, then remotely, and that's a great use for it as well when it comes to the enterprise space. But for the individual that's buying ExpressVPN, that's not really the idea here. So again, yes, you should use a VPN. Dare I say, you should run a VPN at all times, both on your computers, your laptop or your desktop or whatever, as well on your smartphone. I firmly believe that you should run a VPN on your smartphone. In fact, one of the things I applaud about Google Fi, there's a few things I applaud about Google Fi, but fuck Google, of course, but, one of the things I applaud about Google Fi is that a VPN service is part and parcel of using Google Fi as your telco. Now, you can turn it off and not use it. It does take they admit to it can do a little bit of a battery hit. And there is a 10% data usage increase, right? And with Google Fi, you pay by the gigabyte, which I think is a great model. But regardless, Google's totally in the right of running a VPN at all times on your smartphone with Google Fi. Now, yes, it's Google's VPN, and Google's collecting all of that. But, at the end of the day, it's still, in the abstract, it's the right idea. Okay? So, yes, running a VPN, I think, is still important, still essential, still something you want to do. You want to be smart about it, right? I mean, connect to services or servers, I should say, VPN servers in different countries based upon use case if you want. To be really particular, if you're knowledgeable about laws, right? That's why a lot of VPNs promote their Netherlands servers pretty heavy, because they have really lenient IP law there. Now, if you're going to do that, though, which one should you use? Well, clearly, and again, we'll talk about the why in the episode with Ernie. You don't want to use one owned by Cape Technologies, because Cape Technologies has a very nasty history as Crossrider, and also they're engaging in really ugly business practices where not only are they buying up all these VPNs, but they're also buying up VPN review sites to basically, lure you into using one of their VPNs. And it's not uninteresting that they're not changing the names of these VPNs because they don't want you to know that, or, they don't really want the average person to know that they own all of these. And you got to ask, like, what's in it for Cape, right? In owning all these different VPNs, especially when it's something like, because one of them was, so we said, I started reading it earlier. I don't even think I went down a list. So Cape Technologies owns ExpressVPN, CyberGhost, Private Internet Access, ZenMate, and I think some others. But, the big one in there was Private Internet Access, which was the one that for many years on Sovryn Tech I was recommending using. That is no longer my recommendation. And my present contract with Private Internet Access actually ends in 2022, and I will not be resuming that contract. So let's talk about this. Companies like Private Internet Access claim to keep no logs, zero logs. So they can't hand over the data if somebody asks for it, what you're doing over their VPN servers. That's the claim. To some degree, that claim can be verified, but to some degree, at any given moment, you're really trusting them. Okay. And that's partly why I'm saying, never really bet your life on a VPN service. But let's say they are still keeping zero logs. The concern for me at this stage, based on the history of Cape Technologies, who, have made like browser extensions and whatever that have been proven, that have long been known about, and that regularly had gotten taken down for collecting a lot of data and metadata about users. So they're anti-privacy. Like, the company is anti-privacy. That's why people are freaking out about, holy shit, they're buying up all these VPNs, but the history of the company is not pro-privacy. So what's going on? And here's where I don't think I got to get this in when I was talking to Ernie. Because, when he and I get together, like, our conversations go everywhere, right? Which is great. But the point I wanted to make was that there's nothing to prevent Cape Technologies from putting in some kind of data collection in the VPN app that you install. Now, you could say that, well, these VPN apps get vetted and blah, 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 and maybe some of them do, but I don't know that they all do. And that's where I'd be ultimately concerned. Even if they're still keeping zero logs, what the fuck is that app doing? Whether it's on desktop or mobile or whatever. And again, we're talking about a company, Cape Technologies, that has a history of doing that very thing. They've been promoting a lot more, like using a browser extension to connect and all that. It's just, I don't trust it. Flat out. Okay. And so any company owned by Cape Technologies, I am not going to frequent. I am not going to use. So the question becomes, this is the other thing I didn't, and why I really wanted to do this opening, because I think, we didn't get into it in the episode. What do I recommend that you use if, you were a private internet access, say, subscriber, or an ExpressVPN subscriber, to their VPNs? Well, my recommendations right now are 3. I kind of want to toss in Proton VPN if you're a Proton Mail user, because there's just some synergy there, but I know people are skittish, even though, well, anyway, the Proton Mail situation is an ongoing one. I talked about that in a recent episode of whether or not you should keep using Proton VPN or Proton Mail specifically. You can go and listen to that and hear about my thoughts on it. It's a very recent episode. But let's say, minus Proton VPN, which I applaud for being in the F-Droid store. Minus that, there's really 3 that I would go with. probably at the top of the list would be my number 2, or really it was like my co-regent, my co-number 1, all right, with private internet access. So for years, when I've been asked this question about what's the best VPN to use, and I've been asked it many times, the two that were always at the top were private internet access and AirVPN. Now, the reason I would always bring up AirVPN was because if you were concerned, again, years ago especially, if you were concerned that private internet access was a United States-based company, and that's reason enough to be concerned. If you were concerned about, that's saying nothing of their decision of Mark Karpel's being their CTO. I already covered that on Sovryn Tech years ago. We don't even have to go there. The concern around that comes from the work of the late great Casper Bowden, who proved that, if you're a United States-based, technology company, or if you have servers in the United States, you have to hand over any request automatically. Really, you have to respond to any request from law enforcement or from the authorities, from the government. Let's put it that way. From the government, you have to hand over that data no matter what. And so I would always bring up AirVPN because, granted, private internet access was keeping 0 logs, or at least that's the theory, and they weren't owned by Cape Technologies at the time. I'd say, well, even if you are concerned about that, okay, then use AirVPN, where their servers are in Europe, mostly, or their business is based out of Europe. So that gives you a little bit of a degree of separation. Now, today, in my opinion, with the Cloud Act that came into fruition during the Trump administration, I don't think that any of that matters. With the Cloud Act, it doesn't matter where the fuck the server is. The U.S. is going to get access to it, or the Europeans are going to get access to it, or whoever are going to get access, or the EU, whatever is going to get access to it. With the Cloud Act, none of that idea of of geocaching or, geographically separating your business or your servers or whatever, it just doesn't mean anything anymore. And, it's funny because even the tech giants, who, you believe it or not, have things they want to hide from governments. I don't think that would surprise anybody, but they still do. They like to base everything in tax haven Ireland. But even that is feeling the squeeze. Even Ireland is feeling the squeeze from the Cloud Act. So, I don't think that really matters anymore. But at the time, it was important. So that's why I always brought up AirVPN, saying that if you are concerned about a U.S. business, and I understand why, then go with AirVPN. Now, in 2021, end of 2021, AirVPN basically takes top marks because many others have been bought out. They're not the only one, but I do recommend AirVPN. That's the top of my list now. Number 2 on my list would be Mulvad. MULVAD. Mulvad is also European, but they were really pioneering the use of the WireGuard protocol for VPNs as compared to OpenVPN. I think they do a lot of things right, especially if you have a Linux machine. I think WireGuard is absolutely something you should be considering and thinking about as compared to OpenVPN, like I said. And then at number 3, and I'll put all these in the show notes. At number 3, this one's, I hate to use this phrase, but I'm going to do it. This one's a bit of a wild card. And number 3 would be riseup.net. Now, I know a lot of people will go to RiseUp's website and they'll say, holy shit, they don't like capitalism, and so I'm not going to use them. And someday people will grow up, okay, and get past this shit and realize that they're absolutely talking about, crony capitalism. They're complaining ultimately, at least in the abstract, about the same things that you are. Okay. Now, riseup.net, unlike the previous 2 VPNs that I mentioned, is technically free. It doesn't cost you anything to use it. Now, they don't have a bunch of servers, all around the world and different ones you can switch out to and everything. They basically have, their servers, their one that power, or, their farms, maybe they have, a couple locations, I don't know, but they don't have, it's not like the business model like AirVPN or Mulvad. RiseUp.net is for activists of all stripes. And because of that, this isn't something to go watching Netflix on. Don't use RiseUp.net if your whole purpose in using a VPN is to stream shit. Okay, I don't recommend that. But if your purpose is more activism based, then I think, using RiseUp.net's VPN service is a fine thing. Now, it's free, like I said, but they do accept donations in crypto, mind you. And I recommend, because VPNs are not cheap to run, I recommend donating to them. So even if it's free, you should think of it as a pay-for model, in my opinion. But again, RiseUp.net is not a VPN service that I would say, to use 24/7, and to like watch shit on and do, a lot of the other things that we mentioned that you would want to still do with the VPN today. So take a look at AirVPN, take a look at Mulvad. I think both of those are good options. AirVPN probably being the best one running, because they've been supporting, especially like taking Bitcoin, taking crypto for so many years. Private internet access was too, but well, again, they're owned by the wrong team. So there's your options for you. Again, I've said it over and over again. VPNs are still valid. They're still worthwhile to use. Okay. Are they perfect protection by any means? No. I get something else I get annoyed at, as a cybersecurity professional, that I get really annoyed about is when people say that, weak encryption or weak security is meaningless security, meaning that if your security model, security model is weak or your security implementation is weak, that you might as well not have it at all. I totally disagree with this statement, like saying that, there could be, 0 days in OpenVPN or WireGuard or other concerns, blah, 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 saying these things, true or not, you're still making, here's how security really works. There's no such thing. There's perfect math, but there's no such thing as a perfect implementation. So there's no such thing as perfect security. As far as we know, based on any, threat model that we have, not really possible. Okay. With computers as they're built today. And forget about smartphones, from SIM card to baseband, just forget it. So we accept that there's no such thing as perfect security. However, you can make things expensive for, the bad actor, for the malicious party. Okay. And I think that even weak security options can make things expensive, okay? Be it in money or time or whatever resource is necessary to go the extra step to get past your extra security step. I think that extra security step is still worthwhile. We could say VPNs are fucked, but it's still going to make things challenging for, 60% of attackers, and makes it more expensive for the other 40, potentially, or at least maybe the other 39%. So you got to reframe this. Security is not about perfection. That doesn't exist. Security is about making attacking you resource intensive and resource expensive, to the point that either you are not a worthwhile, like you're a target that's more trouble than you're worth, or you buy time to react to the attack. That's the purpose of your security making an attack resource intensive and expensive. No one's talking about perfection here. The only perfect security model is to just not use shit, right? Like, Signal is not perfect security. No, perfect security is not having a fucking smartphone. Right? At least that's perfect security within that vector. So I think we're really approaching a time where we have to, we've learned so much with the, technological dystopia that's been created by governments and tech giants. and by lazy people, frankly, because they just, yeah, sure, it's free, I'll do it. We have to rethink, a lot of our models, a lot of how we, look at security, cybersecurity, and so on, based on what we've learned, based on the mistakes that have been made. And I mean, mistakes have been made. One could go so far as to say the internet was a mistake, but that's a much larger conversation to get into. That's not saying interconnectivity is a mistake. That's not saying that computers talking to each other is a mistake. Nobody's saying that. But perhaps it should have been done in a very different way. In fact, I'm not even saying anything crazy. Tim Berners-Lee, one of the co-creators of what we know of as the internet, has made the claim himself. So there's a lot of things we need to reframe. And it's my great pleasure to do a tech show that, gets to be part of that conversation, and that I get to be asked on other shows to forward that conversation, and bring in the details and maybe some insights here and there, like I was on Declare Your Independence. So we're going to cut to that audio now. And again, it was a great honor to be on. I'm not going to come back. I'll let Ernie's show close it right out. And I hope you enjoy it. If you have any thoughts, feel free to, chat in the Telegram group about it. You can always @me @Sovryn, or, email me questions at sovryntech.com. And maybe that's something that I can get into. And if you have comments on it and, might need some reviewing, happy to do that. But go ahead and check out everything that's in the show notes. And here comes me and Ernie talking we talked for a good while. I want to feel like it was almost a couple hours. Anyway, enjoy. I'll see all of you on the other side.
Ooh, another special edition of Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, here in Virginia. We're in Norfolk, Virginia right now, and then from here we're going to Outer Banks, and then we're going to warp speed it down to Lafayette, Louisiana for Red Pill Expo, G. Edward Griffin's 90th birthday, so we didn't want to miss that. And then we'll be heading, maybe we'll go visit Tim Fry at Roberts Brokerage in Pensacola, then my niece in Jacksonville, and then we got commitments to get down to the Keys, and then we got to go to Boca Chica, Texas to get the picture with the Starship and Love Bus, and there might be a couple other stops there in the micro moments we have, and we got to drive all night every day for the rest of our lives to get back to Phoenix by Thanksgiving. That's the goal. Whew. We'll see, okay? But, there's an intentional community they're doing in Arkansas they want us to stop by and look at. I really don't want to have to go to Springfield, Missouri, just a bus engine before warranty's over to have them make sure I don't get a third breakdown or whatever. So we're trying to cram the rest of the Love Bus Liberty Tour in before the end of the year, so I don't have to go back out in January, February to finish our commitments, because we're going to be starting to build with aircrete infused with graphene to create a building material that we can make a bunch of domes. And we're doing one in Camp Verde in the Verde Valley in central Arizona and south of Flagstaff and north of Phoenix. And we're going to be doing one there as a test, for a friend that needs, something new home he's building and he wants it for whatever. So we get to experiment with that and get all our techniques down. Then in May, we go to Washington State to build up the 5. So we're going to, by the time we get done with that, we're going to have it down. And then Don and I will be building our home, and so 22 is building the machines and getting the techniques down. We've been traveling around the country, a lot of people doing this, because I wanted to have Brian Sovryn on. We're going to be talking about a lot. We're just going to yak it and get caught up here. Brian and I are friends for a long time. And for the past 10 years, Dr. Brian Sovryn, I got to do that. Dr. Brian Sovryn has been the host of the popular science and tech podcast, Sovryn Tech. With a history of working for multiple tech companies and having been involved in the cyberpunk community since the 90s, his work has been featured in The Guardian, Gizmodo, and other major outlets. As an author, his books include the top-selling Android security model, Dark Android. We'll talk about that a little bit. He is presently a denizen of the freer state of New Hampshire. So Right. Not claiming totally free, right? So
No.
this is, and there's a couple of things, a lot of stuff in tech that we wanted to get caught up on. The reason I bring up this community stuff is because as we've been around the country, and we go to a lot of these events and festivals, and we've overlapped with Derek Broza's activation tour probably at least 3 or 4 times. And when he's talking to like-minded libertarian anarchists, leave me alone as voluntarist people, the one at Midfest, the event there, even though it's kind of the same presentation and so on, it was just so much better when you're in a crowd of your own and you just relaxed. You're not, having to, entertain or put, convince anybody of anything or,
Absolutely.
There's no liberal heckler or something, whatever.
You can actually get to doing things instead of having to, cover the basics, right?
Right. And him and Miriam did such a good job. And it was so timely that they do this activation tour, like the Love Bus Liberty tour. I mean, everything we've been screaming about forever is now,
Mm-hmm.
And, but everybody keeps talking, they say the word community. And one of the things in the community is communication. When you go to pirateswithoutborders.com and you'll see the top categories that we have up there is communication. Have you been to Pirates, Brian? To
the website, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the letter, we'll pull it up because it applies here when I finally let you monologue me. But
Sure.
The technology is so important that we've been working really hard on the IPFS and the pirate box and being able to store and access data, ones and zeros. How come I can't just put it up and everybody be able to access them? I mean, how hard is this? Well, apparently harder than, what the internet was made to allow. But it is happening. And just last night, we had already planned to talk about another issue we'll get into. Cape Technologies, formerly Crossrider, is a malware install. You need the new Adobe flash drive, and then of course they throw a bunch of other crap in there and do it. Well, this company changed its name and bought a whole bunch of VPNs. So they got their client list, the data list. They may even get the list of you looking list. I mean, so this is, and of course they're in Israel, so that that doesn't help either. So I'm going, okay, this is getting serious about the surveillance and the creating of a ledger on you. Well, then we find out that this has been going on for a while, that Google has a thing called Google Ledger or something. Are you familiar with this? We just started covering this. What they're doing is they archive, which is nothing new, they're archiving all searches, all everything, anything you've seen, done, do, and then you go, yeah, okay, well, what's new? What's new is this. They're doing it and calling it a digital DNA profile. And what it is like they would look at your DNA and all of a sudden, some, slaughter bot drone comes in and kills a 7-year-old kid on the playground. You're like, what the hell was that about? Because he had the DNA of William Wallace, Braveheart of hell no. We go, whatever. We found out in our studies that anybody that has this expressed gene in the DNA, they're no longer for this world because we got to worry about them in the future. Well, the digital DNA is kind of the same thing. In China, when they do their surveillance and you have your social credit score kind of deal, and you got some dissident that not playing ball and whatever, not only do they, especially if they leave the country, not only, he can't come back or she can't fly on an airline anymore or something like that, they punish your parents because they blame your parents for making a dissident. You didn't raise them right, okay? So you're in trouble. Well, this digital Google Ledger thing is that. It is multi-generational digital mapping. So what you're doing, they're like, well, then of course, we look at the kids doing it. Well, then we go back and we look at those parents. Oh, it was that freaking voluntarist Dr. Sovryn, had a kid and he infected them, so they're looking at creating a digital record that goes generations before and after. And it's starting when? Now, or certainly from our generation going to the next. So it makes sense. I mean, of course, there's going to be some influence from grandma, grandpa, uncle, whatever the heck, and family kind of thing. But it's not just. So you go, is it nature or nurture? Well, the thing is it just a biological DNA thing? And is it expressed in, what they're searching and how they're thinking? When I got burned, and, I got skin grafts of whatever, I got burned in 94, okay? And I remember laying in bed doing my 3400, 3900 baud modem kind of, email, text mess kind of crap. And that's when they started doing Epsilon and Carnivore and all this other stuff. And in my, recreated induced recovery mode, as I'm sitting there, I'm going, all of a sudden I got it. I go, I see what they're doing. For the first time in human history, the king has been able to get into the subject's head. They didn't have that before. And the closest they got was confession with the priest that was, the buddy of the king of whatever, which, don't think that didn't happen. So I'm going, all right, so now for the first time, en masse, they have for a whole country, the world, able to get inside how you're thinking, what you're thinking, who you're thinking it with, all this stuff. So this is where, of course, Brian comes in, and I want to let him monologue me on all these subjects. They're buying up and taking over VPNs so that you're not private and whatever the hell you do, as if you ever were anyway. And then they start giving up, codes and information from Proton Mail. You start to find signals, hacked by the FBI. You start to find out, so if you think in any ones and zeros you're putting in and you're being private, you haven't been paying attention. So then we find out that there's a new product that's coming out of China. It's called the Mesh-tastic T-beam. And what it is a small, looks like, it could be Arduino, dated Raspberry Pi. And it's a mesh network that they're just now starting to develop, and hackers and stuff are getting access to this. And I sent Brian a video on it. He hadn't even watched yet because I just got this information. So what we're going to do is I'm going to send Brian and friends 5 of these. Now, they're not free, but they're only like $30 a piece. I'm going to send 5. What do you need for a good test? At least 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I think 5. So I'm going to send 5 to Brian and friends to check out, to create a mesh network. And then it's mine. Thanks for setting it up. But, it's so you guys can play with it. Because this is the most important for me, is communication. When you do these communities, you start having a Liberty community in the Canyon of, the small community of community, and our campsite, like we do Jackalope, in northeastern Arizona, we have an annual festival that's off-grid. No signal, you're out in the middle of the forest, and you're lucky, Jack uses Bitcoin and gets some porta potties, because other than that, there's nothing. Well, what happened is everybody's wanting to know what's the schedule, where we get, how we communicate with each other. Hey, come over here. The popos arrived here. I hear helicopters. Whatever the heck. You need some kind of communication. Well, that's what this does. And it meshes, through, and people link up to it to your devices. And so, it really sounds interesting. And I think Brian and the community in the freer state of New Hampshire, this is a perfect opportunity for us to check on this. So I'm going to, help that along, and we'll be talking about it. So we're going to order it right now on AliExpress, but, bandwidth is being a pain in the butt, so we'll take care of it. And Brian's sending me his address. So however long it takes for them to unload some cargo ship, which is God knows when or whatever. So we'll get started on this. But I need, since Brian and I haven't talked for a while, I want you to monologue me where we are in tech, what you've been doing, what your goals are. And my big thing is now, of all the stuff that we've done in a lot of the categories, it's now the building of homes. Cheap, quick, fast, dome, aircrete, infused with graphene, the fast. We're building. The first one we're going to be doing in Arizona, in central Arizona, higher elevation there for a friend. Then we're going to Washington State in May, and we're going to be building several. Then Don and I, will start working on our own home after, we learn all this. But at the end of this, we're going to have equipment, technique, and this is all new material and stuff. A lot of people have been doing different things, and we're going to try and upgrade it for the community. As we go into communities, everybody, you're all in tents, trailers. What do we need to have land where we can build homes, grow our own food, and be able to be off the grid. My questions are 3. What do I have to do? What can't I do? What's your conflict resolution? A lot of people want me to go, and be part of their hippie commune, and we're productive, Don and I, and, we'll actually work. And I'm going, yeah, of course you will. What obligations do I have? Who I got to defend of coming in drunk with the sheriff's department behind them, sliding into the compound of, protect me or something. And you know what I'm talking about, Brian. There's always, we got issues with people. So the communication part of it is going to be essential. What are your thoughts? Monologue me on the VPN thing that's going on. Mesh networks, what you guys have been working on. What's got your focus? If you don't talk for at least 20 minutes, I'll be disappointed. Go.
You got it. Well, it's always great to be on, Ernie. And I got to tell you, the thing I've always loved about you, we've been friends for a long time. You absolutely are a doer. No one is waiting on you, ever. And I appreciate that because, that does seem pretty rare, in a community of people that are very concerned and rightfully concerned about a lot of what's going on. Myself, I've been going for... Well, Sovryn Tech, my podcast, of course, it's Sovryn Tech. And you can go to sovryntech.com to check that out. But I've been doing that it's been going for 10 years now. And it's something that's only growing. Now, that part's hopeful, right? Because I talk about tech very frankly. I pay no fealty to any of the tech giants. Really, I pay no fealty to anybody. And I'll call it how I call it, or call it how I see it. Now, in that, in 10 years, there have been a lot of changes. Like you mentioned at the top, I've written the literal security manual on Android devices. So I'm pretty intimately aware of Android, how it works, the innards, the whole thing. Myself, as far as anything within the duopoly of the smartphone space, Android and iPhone, at this stage in 2021, I've essentially just thrown my hands up. I've given up, on a lot of that. Now, there's nuance there. There are alternatives that we can look at. We're going to talk about some of them here. Certainly with the Meshtastic device that you were just describing, we'll get into that a bit. But I feel like on the consumer level, we've essentially lost. You are never going to go into Best Buy or, go on to Amazon or whatever. And generally, you're not going to buy something that is somehow respectful to your privacy and that empowers you as an individual. And that's what I mean when I say that to some degree, we've lost the tech war. But that doesn't mean you can't buy things and then, up your knowledge game and figure out how to make them, privacy respecting and how to make them, empower you as an individual. So that, and that's the direction that my show has taken as late. That's the direction that I'm trying to lead everybody towards. And really, Ernie, it sounds like, we have very similar end goals because the end goal is getting people together in communities. And you're 1,000% right that communication is absolutely essential, to make those communities thrive, regardless of size. We really have to have that. And we're not going to go back to carrier pigeons, as secure as that may be. But so I don't know, with drones, maybe they could look out for carrier pigeons now. But we're not going to be going back to that. But there are things, that can be done. There are things that can be used. But yeah, I think, finally getting together and building these things. I love what you're talking about with these easy, not to say that they're easy, but these easier to build homes, these structures, like dome structures you were talking about. I think that's absolutely a direction, to keep looking at. Some people have different terms for these things. Some people say intentional communities. Some people are into what are called eco villages. All of these things are just fantastic ideas that have to happen because as tech has continued to pervade and even further after 2020, it seems almost unavoidable. I feel like you basically you have to walk away. You have to walk away from the standard. We don't really have a free market, but the market that exists, you can't count on that because it's not respectful. It's not respecting you it's not pro-consumer in any real way, unless you just want to just have your eyes glazed over while you're watching Netflix or something, then sure, we live in a world that's perfect for you. You can be a potato all day long. But if you're actually wanting, personal autonomy, and you're actually wanting, privacy, and to be respected as a person, I think a lot of what's just on the market today, it's not there. One of the things, speaking of the internet, or the big bad internet as I call it, one of the things that I've recommended for many years on Sovryn Tech was, use a VPN. And I've given talks at all kinds of festivals and and conferences and events, and it's usually the first thing I even bring up is, get a VPN. Use that, like if that the bare minimum of what you can do to reclaim your privacy to some degree, and this is true for a smartphone as well as a laptop, desktop computer, whatever, go ahead and get a VPN. Now, I'll admit, over those years, one of the top recommendations that I've made, and I've made a few, but one of the top recommendations I've made as far as VPNs is private internet access. In fact, I think even previously when I've been on your show, I had talked about it in the past. However, in the past few years, that recommendation certainly has changed. I cannot recommend private internet access on its own. And part of that has to do with what you were bringing up, Ernie, and what you had shared with me about Cape Technologies. So Cape Technologies is a company that was previously called Crossrider, and they made like extensions and add-ons for web browsers. They did some other things as well, but this is extensions and add-ons for web browsers. Think of like ad blockers. Think I don't know, actually even like Bitcoin wallets or password managers, all of these things, or like Ethereum wallets, all of these things have been, these little add-ons that are supposed to make your web browsing experience, or your productivity better when you're using the web browser. Or like another one that's really popular is something like Grammarly, which will like scan everything that you're writing or seeing, and will tell you if the grammar's off, or if there's a
one that they always hit you on. Oh, I'm sorry, your Flash thing doesn't work, and Adobe you need to upgrade, and they get you. That was the famous one that they always were using, and they leave some malware on your thing to make money to track them, whatever the hell. So to have a company like that buying up VPNs, I'm thinking, and I think it's based out of Israel too. So I'm just not feeling warm and fuzzy about this.
And so I mean, the thing is that most people don't think about it. They think, oh, this is nice. This software is helping with my internet experience or something like that. But even something as simple as Grammarly, I mean, this is where people don't think about it. Is that so? Grammarly is just there to like scan everything and give you recommendations on how to make your grammar better, write a better email, things like this. But no, most people aren't paying attention. It's scanning everything on your screen, every text, like all the text on your screen, it's looking at everything that you're web browsing. And what are they doing with that data? Are they selling that data off? Are they feeding it into an AI that can, become Skynet in the future or something? Who knows, right? So, I mean, you'd think it's completely benign, but then even just in its function, it's actually not benign. Whether or not they're selling off that data or not, it's still infringing upon your privacy. So these apps that Crossrider had made, and this has been a problem, Google's well aware of it, Apple's well aware of it, every single tech company is well aware that, especially with web browser extensions and add-ons, it's a wild west. Firefox got to the point where they said, we can't manage this, and guarantee that the user is going to get a great experience with these add-ons. And so they switched over to where, okay, we're just going to use the same Chrome add-ons that Google uses. Now, these are all smart moves because, again, it's just nasty. And there have been millions, at least hundreds of thousands of, and I don't think that's an exaggeration, of add-ons, and there really have been that many, that have been banned over time or removed over time from, say, like the Chrome Web Store or whatever, just so that they can't infect you. And I'm sure Crossrider, or now Cape Technologies, was behind some of those. So because of that, people are very concerned now that they're buying up all of the big VPNs. Now, they bought a private internet access, I think that was back in 2019, and then most recently, though, what's scaring everybody to the tune of $1 billion, which used to be an impressive number. I guess it's not so much anymore. Now everybody's buying everybody for billions of dollars. It's all monopoly money.
It says here Cape's been on a VPN buying spree since 2017.
Yeah. So they started off with CyberGhost, and then they went to like ZenMate, and then they bought Private Internet Access, but they bought ExpressVPN recently. Now, most people, even if they don't have a clue what a VPN is, which VPN just stands for Virtual Private Network, and it essentially, the best description ever, I think, for a VPN is that it's a condom for your internet connection. Okay, like, it's just imagine that.
Not
like
anymore.
over
it's got holes all in the tip. Man.
Well, right. yeah. Now you're gonna get pregnant anyway. Yeah. So, it's a good idea because what it does is it encrypts all of the data and all of the traffic theoretically that normally would go to your ISP, that would normally go to Comcast or whoever. And again, these can be on smartphones as well. And it would keep that data from getting to Verizon, keep from getting to, AT&T, whoever, theoretically. They're good things. They're important things. And there's other ways that they're used in the enterprise space. But ExpressVPN, everybody knows because if you watch YouTube for a second, you're probably going to run into an ExpressVPN ad because they sponsor a lot of the very popular YouTubers. So this has people sweating. I mean, because people have been using ExpressVPN for years, and then they find out this company comes in and buys it out. And, some of these companies like Private Internet Access, now part of the reason I used to recommend them so much was that they would keep zero logs, and they had been tested and verified to keep zero logs, at least as well as anybody can test and verify these things. And the logs are, okay, so the log would be, say, what your ISP, what like Comcast would normally get of everywhere and everything you did and everything you typed on the internet. The idea is that a VPN would be privacy respecting and would keep no logs of that information ever. Okay, wouldn't even hold it for like 5 minutes. It's not going to do it.
Pinky swear.
Yeah, pinky swear. Well, see, you got it, Ernie. That's the thing, is that you're always trusting them. You're always trusting a third party. You can't really know. I mean, there's ways to test if a VPN is actually masking you from who, from who they claim to be protecting you from. And that's easy enough to do. But, can you really know that they're not holding your data, that they're not keeping logs? Can you really be sure of the VPN client that you install that makes it easy on your desktop to connect? To their servers? That's where the issues come up. That's where, the challenges are. Even for tech savvy people, that's a challenge, to make happen. So this is really concerning. And not only that, what really doubles down on the concern is they went and bought like major VPN review sites. Even,
right.
So it's like, wait a minute. So they buy the competition and they even buy the person who reviews, everything. I mean, it's a perfect storm of lying to you, or at least its potential is there. This is really scary. And when you run into things like recently, so there's a VPN company called QuickFox. And they are their bread and butter is basically if you are a citizen of China and you go outside of China, but you still want to access things behind the Great Wall of the internet, that China has up, you would use QuickFox to access those Chinese websites. Very, very popular. Well, just a few days ago, there was a massive data leak of over 1 million users most of their record, like their passwords, a ton of encrypted information, all on these Chinese users of QuickFox. And nobody knew that they were even collecting that. In fact, a lot of the information, there's no reason for a VPN to collect it unless, it's doing so under the orders of, they, them, those, the state or whoever else. Or they're selling off that information. Either way, you're losing control of your information, which is just, should be anathema for anybody getting, on the internet in any way. So the concern would be that, well, if Cape owns all these companies and then something similar happened like with QuickFox, how many millions of people would be screwed and how much data that you thought you had protected and whatever else?
And you had great reviews. It says here, Cape purchased a collection of VPN review websites, then changed the rankings and were the best ones. You can't make this stuff up, man.
No.
And a lot of people, you got to get. And I remember I tell you when it was. I got PIA. I started using them. I had something else before, but it was when crypto was at the Consumer Electronics Show in, 17, 14, 13, whatever. It was a long time ago. And I remember because I used to go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas for years, covering it, because you got to be a journalist or in the industry, that kind of thing. And you have, I don't know, thousands and thousands of vendors over many freaking venues to look at. And I'm, of course, in the basement of the Venetian looking at the 10 by 10 of some college kid with the freaking whiz-bang whatever cool thing. You know, I thought that was cool because that's what you see in the tech, 2-3 years later. And so that was what was more interest to me. The one thing that was interesting is China would have like a freaking Bangkok bazaar, where they had, representatives for every freaking gizmo and doodad that you could possibly want to make whatever. So it was very entertaining. By the time you get to the Panasonic guys and the whatever and the new whatever, they're, I don't care about that. They're just how they're going to use it to screw you. Well, when the crypto guys went and they had their own thing up there, that's when I could see crypto was going to go, because NCR and a lot of the point of sale cash register people were making devices that I knew that even a mom and pa within 5 to 8 years, even the smallest little bitty pizza family restaurants got to get a new tablet or something to take payment for whatever. And all of these are going to be crypto friendly. Well, this is coming up to where we get this. We'll talk about this. The central bank digital currency, GoldmanSachs.gov coin, freaking UBI, universal basic script, purple digital money, whatever the hell's coming. Okay. So I go, no, I guarantee they love them some Bitcoin. It's going to be GoldmanSachs.gov coin. That's what's coming. So that's a whole nother story. But at that time, I met the PIA guys because they were there promoting, and it was Paul Puey from Airbits, now Edge, that goes, Ernie, man, you gotta get, these are the guys. I know, Pace, these are the guys. All right. Well, maybe they were then. Yeah. And especially when they are then, when you get, Tom's toothpaste from Maine, it's organic, it's not fluoridated, it's not, it's super great and wonderful toothpaste of we don't try to kill you. Well, then what happens? Procter & Gamble or Colgate or whatever buys them up because they got a name. This is what happens. It's called consolidation. And I just did a show a couple of days ago. James Corbett and I do a weekly show. And I go, in 2020, when 2020 started, even before the COVID thing, I goes, 2020 it. And he goes, what? I go, it. And he goes, yep. 2020, here it comes. So we could feel it coming. We already made plans to do the Liberty Love Bus Liberty Tour thing and all that. Yep. Then 21 was solutions. So we've been working on solutions. What's 22? And he goes, consolidation. It's going to be the consolidation of the evil forces of they're going to come out of the woodwork and buy up everything and we got you. And consolidation, of the movement, or at least a general public opinion of, no, we got to do something else. Mesh networks. But what happens? I remember a documentary that got it was like, 5 years ago or something, and it got a revitalization of, watch this. And it was called, Red Dragon or something. I can't remember. It was pushed by Alex Jones back in the day. And what it was all of a sudden what's going on now, boom, the zombie apocalypse happened, all electronics went down, everybody's surveilling everything, whatever. And they go, how did it happen? How did it happen? And a guy takes a phone and busts it open, takes the back off and looks, and all the chips said made in China. He goes, that's how. So when we get this mesh-tastic, coming from China, how secure are we we're gonna feel? But the thing is that's not, what I'm really concerned about. What I'm concerned about is the ability to communicate in a small community, to where you have in a neighborhood, like my brother-in-law lives in this nice neighborhood here, and he's all politically active. It's McAuliffe versus whatever, the governor race that's going on here. He's working the election. He's, and of course you guys still voting? Whatever. So anyway, so they have, this, and the Democrat incumbent just hired Clinton lawyers, in the election this next week, there's going to be fraud, I guarantee it, and we're going to have the lawyers and whatever the hell, man. It hadn't even started yet, and it started. So this is this community, as they're doing and walking around, they started to find out who the the liberals are and who the conservatives are, and they're starting who's still your friend and not your friends, and how you communicate. And of course, they're saving the planet, and masters of the universe are against us for yada yada yada. Facebook. Or they'll start using, private, it's on Signal. Well, that'll do it, or Telegram. All these are freaking Proton Mail, all compromised from the beginning. I always went in knowing that they would, if they weren't, they're going to be anyway. So if you have the mesh network, a Meshtastic or something, you are being able to communicate. Well, how private would it be? I don't know. Is it give the codes of the Biden administration and they just any and everything that comes on there? When people get in trouble is when they think they're private. And then they start, getting all, here come the misogynist and racist jokes of whatever, and then you get canceled for the rest of your life because you forwarded a meme or something, right? So
right.
I am not that concerned when we get to a closed private community. And it doesn't even need to be, that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about too. Does it have to be a compound, adjacent properties? Could it be a community out, a small town that you got, your good fences make good neighbors, and, my neighbor happens to be somebody I don't agree with, but next to him is, my best friend of whatever. I mean, so we can talk about the communities, but when you have a mesh network, and ones that have some range like this, you're jumping over your, status puke neighbor and to the other guy you want to talk to and not going straight to the man. Will they be able to hack those chips? Are they able to glean off of the information? Are they going to, maybe not. I'm not really that concerned. It's not, if you're going to be on the list, be on top of the list. It's safer there. I mean, I've been out in the open on this stuff, but I definitely want to have the ability, just like when we go into these different festivals, to not know at least we got our own mesh network. So that's the first question. This is our motivation for doing this. So I want to ask if we have something like this Meshtastic, which is Arduino, slept with a Raspberry Pi. I mean, it looks like whatever, and it's got antennas. I mean, whatever. It's gobbledygook stuff. And that's
single board with a USB. Yeah, exactly.
So, and you can USB charge it. So you put a little solar panel on it, put it on top of a tree, you're done. I'm like, ooh, we've been thinking about, because we do pirate radio, we've been doing that, and we have the IPFS, pirate box, network that we're doing, and so this is right in line with that. So if I have this and we're communicating in a community of here comes, the galloping hordes of whatever, and we need to something, the raccoons are on rampage, going to eat all our food or whatever, and you communicate this, what's the possibility of it going to the internet? What would they have to do? Is there some satellite that would be able to monitor this? I mean, what is the capability of something like this, of things that we, don't understand or don't know how monitored we would be?
Yeah, sure. So, the range, of course, is a question, and that's what we're going to test. And I appreciate you providing us with the opportunity to test it. Range is a big question, but the big thing that
my phone goes to freaking space. I got GPS. Right. That's a radio. I'm going to space. I'm connected to a satellite right freaking not later. And right over there, last night, my brother and I are talking and everything about, Alexa and all this stuff. Yeah, there it turns on. He goes, Alexa, who's your master? It's just, as we're sitting there talking and saving the planet and the universe from the galloping hordes or whatever, we're freaking listening. So I'm in Derek Slopey's basement. I got to tell you this story. We're in his basement planning to overthrow the bad guys and saving the universe. And then all of a sudden, something reminds him he needs to get to. He goes, Alexa, get me put on my shopping list. I go, are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Derek,
he goes,
come on.
He goes, you got your phone on you? And I go, yeah, okay, good point. I think he's taking it out now. I think it kind of, creeped him out a little bit too much. But he makes a good point. Everybody bitches about this stuff, and they walk around with a phone on them.
Oh, yeah.
So this mesh network, this Meshtastic, just by looking at it and the chips on there and the distance of whatever, and this little radio right here, this cell phone, connects GPS to space right now. They know where I'm at. They know where I'm going. They know freaking everything. And what you think they got, DARPA's got a little chip into whatever trusted program module of, you're screwed. So how, going in right now before we get any further on this mesh thing, how much reliance should we have on a private mesh that we set up and you're going to play with? And how would you even know?
Oop, I think you just cut out, Ernie.
Okay, well, I think you just came back. I'm going to turn off my video. Okay, go ahead.
Let me see if that helps.
Yeah, I turned off my video. Oh, I'm sitting here slinging around my phone. That's probably what it was. You still there, Brian?
Yep. Okay. Looks like you're coming back. I just cut my video. See if
Yeah.
that
So
help.
I cut my video, so we're good. But go ahead and explain that part to me. That. Yeah, no, the man doesn't want us to. We get to the good. They're not wanting us to talk about that. Okay. All right, we're back to recording. The man doesn't want us, getting into this detail. All right, the question before everything went down is, and I got full bars. I don't know what the heck's going on. They don't want us talking about this. The Mesh-tastic, I guess when I say that word, the capability even of a phone that connects me to space, and they get my geopositional listened to, and Alexa's over there recording everything anyway. I get a Mesh-tastic device here to do this mesh networking, and it's impressive some of the distances that it can do, mesh a neighborhood. And I'm going, yeah, because that's what they're doing with this could easily be the Chinese answer to Amazon Sidewalk. I just saw an article where Verizon, their 5G thing, I got, a AT&T, 2 SIM cards that go into a Netgear on the bus. I have a hotspot 5G super liars of Verizon. I got a Nomad internet that uses T-Mobile. I got a Raspberry Pi that manages Wi-Fi's, when you come in contact with them. And then, of course, we have 3 different phones that we use. So I got like 7, 8 different ways to get on the internet, and all of them suck, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm like, between them, I can usually get something decent, but obviously not. And so I'm looking for Starlink. I'm going, woohoo! I want to see how far up Uncle Sam's butt, Elon is. So we'll see about that. But look at these Mesh-tastic devices, and if I got a phone that's going to space right now and everything's surveilling me, Verizon just worked a deal with Amazon to tap in to their Sidewalk project, which is your home device and your Echoes and all this other stuff, and your Alexas and so on, are providing internet access for somebody walking in front of your house on the sidewalk.
Right.
So I'm going, whoa. So they are locking into that with your cell structure to give you 5G and everything. And in Phoenix, you can see about every block they got these 5G transmitters everywhere to saturate the crap out of something. I don't know what the hell they're doing. But, so I'm not feeling super warm and fuzzy when the Chinese come in with a mesh network with a whole bunch of little black squares on this thing, and God knows what's in there. What kind of threat are we looking at, Brian?
Sure. One thing we're probably never going to get past, seeing made in China on any kind of, circuit board or processor. So there's that part. But I think there's ways around that. Now, an important thing to keep in mind, 2 things. One is that I do think that communications that exist outside of the man's purview are possible, and we know this because the FBI and other alphabet soup organizations will go and shut down companies that make them. Think like Phantom Phone and some others. The other part, so keep that in mind, that A, it's possible because it does make them sweat, clearly. The other part that's important is, you mentioned Sidewalk. Now, when Amazon was testing Sidewalk, all they needed to cover the entire city, for the entire city of Los Angeles to be able to communicate their devices, all they needed was 300 devices for the entire city of LA. That's a massive area to cover with only 300 little devices. So range is possible, and this is possible. The most important thing is that, regardless of where these devices are made, all of that, most important thing is that it doesn't connect to the big bad internet. It doesn't connect to what everyone else is connected to. That's key. Using, as far as like the way, like the low raw transmission that it does, which just means that it's like low powered, which is great. You want that, especially if you're, building your own little community or something like that. If you're encrypting on your device, what gets sent between the two devices, that's really what matters. They could see from space, like you were talking about, they could see perhaps that, okay, two devices are communicating, or there's a way to register that two devices are communicating. But as long as those two devices aren't connected to the big internet, and so, and there isn't some, agent provocateur there or some kind of insider to actually, be on location.
If they have to.
Right, if they have to, then, if somebody's there to do like a local code injection of some kind, yeah, there's nothing we can do about that, and that's probably going to beat most encryption. And of course, the other part, what beats most encryption? A simple camera, and so if there's a camera around and they have access to whatever that camera sees, you're screwed anyway, right? No matter how great of encryption you have. But if you do keep these devices on their own network, and you make it, you code it right in that they're not reaching out in any other way, and you're using, your own, and you can use whatever operating system. There's plenty of good options out there. But I think it is possible to largely harden a network of devices like this to where, it would be very difficult for them to be able, for those to see what exactly is being shared.
You mentioned, you said encryption, and I don't even really count on encryption anymore. When they get their quantum AI of I pushed a button and I know everything, we'll do our quantum version. And I go, right after they took your wallet. It's really going to come down to communities and them. Who the hell do you really want to be talking to about real life issues of, who's going to freaking let the dog out and go harvest the potatoes? It's it's going to be a local mesh thing. And that's what I'm excited about. Something like this is that we have the ability to have the convenience of modern day life, to be able to send files, to be able to post pictures or be able to whatever. And, that's where the IPFS comes in. I could be private with my family and just post up whatever, and we have the hashes to it and none their business. And then, just regular mesh networking of text messages of time to come to dinner. Whatever, something that you can be private. So, something like this, you're thinking there's potential. It's worth testing out and we can see what's up, right?
Yeah. It's step one. There are technologies that exist. They're not like consumer ready. I don't know if the consumers are ever going to have access to them. They're not like secret either, but there are technologies that exist that I think would give us like the type of communication that, you and I have been dreaming about for years. For example, so this uses the Meshtastic, again, uses low raw radios. it has Bluetooth, it has Wi-Fi. It has options on it.
And low raw stands for low power radio, right?
Right, exactly, which is, again, a great thing to have.
But they don't mean low distance. They mean it requires a teeny-weeny baby battery or something.
Yeah, it just doesn't, just doesn't need a big battery to power it for a good long while.
And it can be charged through the USB with a solar panel. Right. So you put this thing on top of some trees or houses or up in a watertight box of, I'm thinking you're going to have some fun with these.
Yeah. There's going to be a couple different ways we'll test them, because we'll test them as, how would they work as what I would call a choke point, as in like we all access the device that has that, or then how would it work if we're just directly connecting device to device, which might be the way to go. But step 2, step 3 of where we could take this, I think you really got to get people used to communicating this way, used to connecting and going through the process. So even if this isn't like the perfect getaway, from the purview of the NSA and whoever else, it's worthwhile to use to get people used to, again, to connecting this way, to communicating this way, and to just like, it's almost like a dress rehearsal for, having your own network. right? And I think that's very important in itself, and especially when the price is only is less than $30. That's phenomenal.
Right.
But then when we get, in the future, I mean, hopefully we can get access to things like what's called Li-Fi, which is laser internet, where, and this is really the dream, where you are literally just sending, laser beams between two devices that will send all of the data that you need to send between the two devices. Now, this has already been tested. It's not something that's only for the military. There are independent communities that have tested this thing out. There's even been operating systems that have been developed to make use of it. All this stuff costs money to do, and I'm sure they haven't had a whole lot of funding, but that's a direction more going in the future, because when you do that, see, then you're not just spraying and praying data. Okay. You're not just just splooging it all out everywhere, like having a device on top of a tree. Then you're going device to device. It's a quick, just imagine a blaster bolt or a phaser shot, from Star Trek or something. And it's just a quick shot from device to device. And then there's nothing for them to pick up because the transmission's done. It's not hanging, in the air. I mean, it's only in one spot, so they can't even really monitor it. And it's, again, at the speed of a laser. So literally the speed of light. And, that's the dream, to get to that. And then we could get into, the Chinese government has already tested this, and, the American government sweats about it, that, where they've sent what they basically quantum laser communication or quantum encrypted laser communication. And hey, if we could get that, great. Again, I'm talking, that's the dream. That's where we get to maybe next. But again, all these things are possible. But right now, what's accessible, there's possible and then there's accessible. What's accessible is something, like what we're going to be testing here, with the Meshtastic. So yeah, mesh networking, this is key. And again, I think even just getting people ready to getting used to communicating this way and not relying so much perhaps on their smartphone or in the way that they normally use their smartphone is incredibly beneficial. And then we can start working on, once that's built up, then we can start using that to communicate. How do we get to level 2, and then how do we get to level 3?
I want to get to level, I could do it.
Yeah.
This is, I'm glad you're willing to take this on, and the VPN thing is, but it's just an example of how far and how willing they are to buy up, consolidate, do in any and everything to get your ones and zeros. And I'm to the point, I don't care, man. They're the architect in the matrix. They can't freaking understand it anyway. When you and I talk about, voluntarism and we're going to this and that and we'll just be left alone and be productive now. No, you won't. You need us to rule you and tell you you'll starve or something. I don't even know what their thought process is, and I don't care. I'm looking at pirate's life for me. And when you go to pirateswithoutborders.com, go ahead and pull that up and you'll see what I mean. You go to pirateswithoutborders.com, on the top of the banner, you have these categories. Communication is number 1 for this kind of stuff. And hell yeah. Matter of fact, I should put this over to there right now. It's at the top of Freedom's Phoenix. I'll get to it a little later and put this as one of the top stories in that category, because this is exactly what we're talking about and why I have Brian on, and I like to talk to Dr. Sovryn. And but there's also food and medicine and energy. And I just, today I order over 30 kilowatts of lithium iron phosphate batteries. And I'm doing it now because by the time I get back to Arizona, I want them waiting on me, and it's going to take 6 to 10 weeks to get them. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm definitely not going to be without power. Then, of all the things on there, the health and the food and, our home in Phoenix, our aquaponics and chickens and turkeys and goats. And I get it. I've checked off most of the boxes, but there's 2 things. One, we still got to finish the pirate box and IPFS and make sure you can put content providers like yourself can put up 1s and 0s and them not be censored, deleted, and be accessible to everyone. So that's one thing. The other thing is day to day in mesh network they can't stop the signal that you can communicate, and they're going to have like radio jammers or something. I mean, they got to bring in the military trucks, kind of. Not that they wouldn't, but I'm just out in the middle of nothing, and man, you guys got enough problems to worry about in the urban areas. Peace be upon thee, but I'm not in your crap. I'm over here, but we want to be able to communicate. Well, I can see, and my prediction is this, Brian, that after this winter and people start getting cold and they have energy outages and all the supply chain gets to whatever and the shelves go bare again and, oh my God, this is the 14th time I don't have toilet paper. So when they get to that, at some point, they're going to start going, that retirement house I wanted to build in the cabin out on the lake or whatever, why am I waiting? Why don't I just do it now? Why? What's the point here? So my kids can go to a good school, if you could find one. No, we're done. We're going to go learn to be human beings first. And I think there's going to be like grapes of wrath and freaking 15 billion Model Ts and Model As going across the country of people moving from Dust Bowl to whatever. This is going to be not to any particular state. Of course, they're all going to leave New York and California, but, and there'd be a big increase in Texas and Arizona kind of populations and New Hampshire and that kind of stuff. But I think it's going to be more a flight from urban areas to rural. And the rural areas suck with communication. That is one of the big, but a lot of times, and they could even just turn you off or we're not giving you service or screw you. And even, go to Starlink and say, yeah, you thought you could have the rule. Yeah, well, you're turning off this valley. I mean, that kind of thing. So if you have, if Brian Sovryn and friends can come up with a practical use of this hardware and make it a community, like when we do Jackalope, and all of a sudden everybody in the valley are able to communicate in real time with each other, boom. We're freaking, that's a big giant chunk of one humongous less thing I got to do. So this is one of the things that you guys are working on. What are some of the things when you're talking with your group? Because how I found you, there's a Telegram group that you really don't have anything to do with. It's like Sovryn Tech fans or something,
Yeah.
And I'm going, cool. That's, because this stuff is, interesting. That's how I, got hold of through that. Mm-hmm. And I'm wanting to make sure that I understand, is there some other tech that you guys are focusing on or working on that we don't know about and should?
Yeah, sure. So something that we're looking pretty deeply at right now are Linux-based phones, like the Pine phone, to where, because
I've been promised
there's
that for
alternatives
a decade.
Exactly. I know what you mean, Ernie. So fortunately, they really are becoming a reality. And not only that, the key part is they're affordable. They're even like below the cost of the average, Android phone, which that's a pretty new development in the past year or so. So that's one of the big areas to look at, is getting out of the duopoly of smartphones, of Android and iOS, because neither of those are respecting your privacy and are really giving you control. So like you were talking about your GPS earlier, how that's always communicating, we can't even trust that when we tell, on our Android device, that when we say, turn off GPS, that GPS is really off, because we know that Google can remotely turn it back on, or whatever powerful party, can turn it back on. So we need devices with hardware switches, and, those are things that we're looking into. The Linux phone is a big part of that. And, the other part really, I think, comes down to, and this has been really hopeful as well. There are now laptops out there where you can repair them yourself, where there is a real right to repair movement going on in the world, which is very exciting to finally see that people care that much. When I spend $1,000 on something or whatever, I want this thing I want to be able to upgrade it. I want to be able to repair it. I want control of the hardware. And that's happening. And we're getting the open source hardware, not just the open source software, but the open source hardware to allow for that as well. So, there are great things happening right now. You have to look for them. Some of them are affordable, some of them are not. But it's good to see that there are people that actually care, as to where I think even just a couple of years ago or 3 years ago, a lot of this stuff was just pie in the sky dreams, where it's not anymore. Now people know, we have to have this.
Yeah. See, I just want the audience to know, man, I'm exploiting the crap out of Brian and friends, because for $150, I can send 5 of these units for him to set up, and I'm done. Ha 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 ha. Screw you guys, So,
right.
But it's really a demonstration for the whole community.
Yes.
Of, we've been talking about this forever. And I remember Derek Slopey saying one time, he goes, it's going to have to be, you want private communication, it's going to have to be device to device. It's going to have to be something like an Arduino that doesn't even have the memory capacity to download malware. I mean, it's not,
right.
It's got to be something real butt simple kind of. And then when I saw this, I go, man, this kind of pretty much described what Derek was looking for,
Yeah.
So, and then just by chance, I mean, at the same time I'm seeing this, Brian confirmed with Donna, he could come on today. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, guess what we're talking about, So this is, I just want the community to know this is how this stuff happens. When Brian has the capability and the community there in New Hampshire, there's a lot of tech guys there that, are thinking along the same lines. We get this going, I'll pimp the living crap out of it. And we'll have, because there's a need for it. We need this. This is something that's going to be, it's non-violent. There's no taking over the radio station. I mean, be the radio station. I mean, crap. There's no taking over the TV station and we're going to broadcast V for Vendetta and standing there with a bomb or something. There's no need for that. And it's just to get away. And technology is such, and that's what Pirates Without Borders is all about. And then the letters of Captain Mark is, like why we're doing it and the standard by which we put the different things. Like the second letter is on crypto. It's on pirate money. Third letter is hailing frequencies invisible to the crown. It's communication. And the first letter is why I raised my black banner. And the second one was economics and communicating prices and, with crypto and money and pirate money, and I'm not hauling gold to the moon, and I need to have my crypto, and X marks the spot on some beach somewhere maybe. But, then we have pirate communications, and then we have, a bunch of other stuff, in healthcare and other things, immigration, a lot of other issues. But the top 3 is my declaration of, I just declared my independence and I didn't need a government form. I got, a way to communicate with you in bartering and prices and buying stuff and Silk Roading. And that's one thing you're talking about. We have blackmarketfridays.com. You go to blackmarketfridays, plural.com, and we're using IPFS pages. And Corbett and I are really pushing this thing. Mike Swatek set this up to where in one day last year we did Black Market Friday. It was 200 vendors signed up. So we got, people are adding on to this, is creating their own marketplace. But when you're starting to do this and communicating, hey, I got this really cool gun or really cool communication mesh network or something. Ooh, the man don't like that. Well, how are they going to get you? They're going to get you by downloading your communication. You said this and you didn't like the IRS and blah, 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 blah. And mesh network, especially when you're dealing it with a community. And this looks like it has enough distance that you can communicate farm to farm to farm to farm to farm. And if you need to, you put a solar panel on it on top of a pine tree and you're freaking done. So I see the solutions to this is not take a gun and run to Washington and try to be the ones in charge of the monuments and the marble. Who gives a crap? I go, yeah, let them be in charge. I don't care. You got to swamp the government over. I don't care. But I need to be able to have these modern day conveniences and the ability to live the modern life to which I wish to become accustomed to. And I get my Jarvis instead of an Alexa. I don't mind having AI, but it better be freaking mine. I'm not going to be a subject to it or whoever owns it. So this is where you come in. And I'm wondering what your philosophy is in the future and what you're using tech and your abilities to prepare for.
Sure. Well, I think you hit it a lot of it. I mean, the beauty of the digital realm is that you know, it's not a realm of scarcity. And in that you can build in parallel. Like you don't have, like you were saying, you don't have to take over the local TV station. You don't have to take over the radio. You don't have to take over whatever. It's not necessary. You just build the parallel versions of that. That speak the truth, and speak truth to power and whatever else, and will empower you to live your life the way that you want to live it. Let the legacy system eat itself. It's going to just let it. It'll fall apart on its own. So just have everything else. You don't have to do anything about that. Just build your system. All of this can take a lot of different shapes. But having our own network is incredibly key. I've been pushing for a long time to use the Briar app. If you do have an Android smartphone, being able to communicate without, using any of the telcos or without, connecting to the internet via, an ISP or anything like that. Having real control, when you buy a device, you should have control over it. And, having real control, the ability to just use that and communicate is a powerful thing. So if no one's looked into the Briar app, I definitely recommend, doing so. But yeah, solar power, you listed off so much of what people can learn about right now, get on board with, start building it. And again, you exist in parallel. You don't even have to, you don't have to engage the legacy system, and that's really the goal that I am looking at, is how is it possible to do that? I know a lot of people are getting into van life. A lot of people are getting into, just constantly like being on the road and, living nomadic remotely and everything. Those are totally viable today. And a lot of that comes from battery technology, like you were talking about, and that's getting better and better every day. There's supply chain issues now, certainly around batteries, but plan things right, and it may not be a problem for you. Get in on it now. That's one of the, in fact, that's one of like the really low key things that nobody really talks about. That's very exciting in tech, is just how good batteries are getting. And how accessible they are, and how good.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. It's amazing what you can get these days. The generators you can buy for, even less than $100 are remarkable what you can do with them. But then get into higher prices, and it's amazing.
Well, so, Colin, that has the big white bus, that was that.
Yep.
We met him. Well, we've known him for a long time. He's at J Noons and so on, but he was at the Midfest. And then he was at Jackalope, and we see him at, we went to his father's home in Kansas City, and he did some battery compartment electrical upgrades on a lot of stuff that we were doing.
Yeah.
And I showed him the battery system that I'm buying from, my home we're building. And I go, look, it's called Life Power, which used to be Gill, it's a rack of 6 of these, and, it's about the size of a dishwasher, and it has 30 kilobytes. Kilowatts. So you get 30 kilowatts and you're done, And
right.
Each one of those are only $1,500 to get 5.8 kilowatts, something like that. Well, hell, he has over 1,000 pounds of lead acid batteries on that bus to give him less than that, And right. I'm going, get rid of that lead acid, get one of these. Are you freaking kidding me? Okay.
Yeah.
So he's all excited. He's in on the buy of that. This changes everything. These batteries, we have 4 Battleborns, 400 amp hours, and they've got a 5-10 year warranty, which I think we're going to have to use on one of them. And they have their own protections, and they're all great and wonderful warranties and so on. But that was, when I first got it, was like $1,200 over a year ago. And now, they're down to like $900, and you can get, clones of them down to $350.
Exactly.
And it's just amazing what the capacity is for you to give the middle finger to the man, while the solar panels have gotten dirt cheap. They're 3-4 times the power density now. You have,
right.
and I'm going, what if China mass producing this stuff and dumping them here in America and cheap, and come get our batteries so that we can bone the energy industry, from behind. And I'm going, Well, cool. Maybe I can help. But, this is, you want to take out the energy industry.
Yeah.
You don't need them. And what are they going to do? They're going to have shortages on natural gas. They're going to have shortages. They shut down pipelines and this and that and everything. And then people are going to be making just these kinds of decisions for the philosophy of decentralization. They're going to come to it just out of survival and I don't want to die mode, and without even being philosophical about it. But when it gets to that, all the things like heirloom seeds that we bought years ago, I bought all the copper from my home a year ago, July, because I knew it was going to happen. So it's just, it's our community is so much further ahead. And when we put as an emphasis on what's more important to us, which is just being and breathing free, raising our children, teaching them, co-oping homeschool, build a dome school hired one of the moms to teach the 14 kids of the blah, 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 blah. We're going to be so much happier, so much better off, so much healthier, live longer, have the satisfaction of producing and building stuff, having happier, healthier animals, living a better diet and a lot more secure in just day to day. We're not going to die, and we need to communicate. So my big thing now, if you'll focus, on this and some other communicating, the IPFS thing we're doing. Yep. Now my focus when we get back to Arizona is going to be the development of the materials to quickly, rapidly, cheaply, inexpensively, quality, insulated, freaking awesome, kick-ass shelter home building. That's where I'm focusing now. And when Ernie button gets pushed on something, guess what happens?
It happens.
It freaking happens. Gosh darn it. Everybody get ready. So now you need to think about the social aspect of it. I had Stefan Verstappen on. Everybody was encouraging me to talk to him. And the same questions. What do I got to do? What can I do? Which conflict resolution? Well, everybody's got a plan for me. And I'm just like, no, I don't want you to have. That was the promise of the Declaration and, the purpose of government, defense of individual rights. If it doesn't do that, it's time to alter, abolish. It's your right, your duty. So I'm going, okay, well, I want to just be left alone, be free, and I'll go do it myself. Am I allowed? That's my plan. I want to have a plan. My plan is I get to have my plan. What about you? Well, you gotta have the plan of the collective of some other plan. I'm like, no, it's not a plan. So what's your plan, Brian? What do you think's going to happen as the freer state of New Hampshire evolves and develops?
Well, I'll tell you, I might end up in an RV or van myself, just to be more mobile, because I'm with you in that, really wanting to just have that freedom, just have it now, just live it now. Don't ask for permission, and just do it. Communications are a big deal to me. That's something that I'll be continuing to work on, as far as, and how tech in general, can really, give us a lifestyle that, where we're not going necessarily back to, hunting and gathering. We don't have to go that far back without all of this. My plan is to keep doing that, get the technology, make people aware of the technologies. It seems like every time society is going through some kind of dramatic shift, and we've certainly been going through one, you always get a back to the land movement that comes back. I think we're probably on the 5th, 6th, 7th one in the United States alone right now. But the difference today is that we don't have to rely on Mother Earth News to transmit information. We don't have to rely on the backwoodsman, right? We don't have to rely on, the magazines. We don't have to rely on periodicals that take a month to come out. Now we have, like what you're doing, now we have podcasts. Now we have, all these varying technologies that can, even show people, this is one of the big things for me, is just like when you have that inner peace, like you're talking about, Ernie, having, because, we're just living on, over here. I think that excites people when they see it. It might terrify them too, and they want to do something bad, but hopefully it just excites them and they want a piece of that too. And, now we can tell people about it. Now they can hear about it. Now they can know that it exists. And that's where it's very different. And so, for me, everything that I can possibly do to live as, rebellious and freely as possible. That's what I'm doing.
Well, that's a tech. What happened is when I first started doing Freedom's Phoenix back in 2005. God, it's been 16 years. Okay,
unbelievable.
So it's like 500,000 stories up there. I mean, it's amazing. Well, what I would do every Saturday when I would, before I had staff putting everything up all the time and stuff like that, and had overwhelming number of, oh my God. But, every Saturday I'd get up, I'd go to the computer, and I'd do what I wanted to do. I would ask, a few questions. What's the latest development in propulsion? This would be like for space travel and stuff, or, cars or whatever. I go propulsion, communication, energy. And I start off with those three, and all of a sudden, boom, there'd be a dozen stories that would come up for that week that would be about whatever. Well, then it got to the point, people really like the tech stuff, like what you do. Sovryn Tech is, oh, hell yeah, we're going to listen to Brian. So, which, by the way, give out your web page, your your YouTube channels or BitChutes or whatever. Do that now, will you please?
Yeah. Anything, if you want to find everything I do, all you got to do is go to sovryntech.com, SOV, V as in Victor, SOVRYN.com, or tech.com. So Sovryn, TECH.com. And that's where you can find it all. And I haven't been doing this since 2005, but I do have 10 years under my belt.
Yeah, so. No. You've been doing it long enough. It's not like I know more than you. I just hell, a lot of the stuff that I put up there is Brian said anyway. So, this is, so what I did is I created a category called Top Tech News. If you go on freedomsphoenix.com on the left side, you'll scroll down a little bit and you'll see like some little tech stories, and it says Top Tech News, and you can click on that hyperlink if you know to, and you see all the tech, which would be energy and different materials and communication, just different stuff. Well, if you go to the pirateswithoutborders.com, that red rectangle on the left side, then it takes you over to Pirates, and we took all of that interfaces, the dashboard on Freedom's Phoenix interfaces with pirateswithoutborders.com. So I took all those and separated them into a category. So when you look at the top of Pirates Without Borders and you hit communication or energy, like if you're on the page there, hit energy, then scroll down and you'll see all of this battery tech, all of the new blah, 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 okay? And, the molten salt reactors, thorium, this, that, whatever the hell, in energy tech. But generally, only if it's a small reactor and could be to a community or something. I'm not, there's not a whole bunch of stuff up there on like transportation. It's personal, electric drone flying. I get my own bite me stuff, flying car kind of crap. So I'm always looking more towards how it empowers the individual or the family or a household. It's going down to where you are able to get off of their grid. So our shirts, you've probably seen our pirate shirts we have. One of them is with our pirate ship there. At the top left, you see it says Take Virtual Tour. You should click that and just watch it in the background. You'll see our pirate ship. A lot of people don't see that. You do that and you go, damn. Well, our shirt says above the grid. We're not even off the grid. We're above it. There's no off what grid. We're above the grid. We don't care. We got a pirate ship. So it's an attitude. And this is what we're trying to promote, and this ability to do the mesh networking, everybody's been screaming about, and I'm sure you've been talking about and working on whatever anyway. That's why I want to make sure you saw it and get you guys in on this, because I see communication is kind of being solved. It's well on its way. I want to keep, time and pressure. Keep my finger on it, keep it going. But we're having a lot of advances in that. And at least a big advance is people see that we need to advance in it. That's a big thing. And then the other thing is dwelling. It's where you live, how you live. I feel a lot of freedom and comfort in the bus. I like being able to go wherever. I like being able to, go to sleep and it's kind of cool and I got to put a hoodie on. I wake up in the morning, it's got warm on my face, but you got to travel, to do that. You stay in Phoenix, man. It's awesome, getting towards this time of the year, but it's 120. That sucks, Then, I'm up in New Hampshire, man. This is awesome. Then it gets -20 and that sucks, So being mobile doesn't suck. But if I got a good dwelling that, is well planned out and insulated and low power and the tech, blah, 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 that's pretty cool. Donna likes being in the desert. She wants to stay in the desert. I like the desert because it doesn't have bugs. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of advantages, but you need the tech. So the shelter thing and the building, as we develop that and doing it, Mike Swatek, that does the silver guy, the pirate guy, and he does a lot of IPFS stuff. We helped map out and do his foundation and getting ready. He's building a big aircrete dome right now on his property. And this is for his sister to retire in. She's like, yeah, well, I wanted to go. I got land, do it, we'll do that, done. And he has a guy that did Dome Gaia out of Hawaii that we met at Midfest at his event there in Oklahoma that did it. He built it. He goes, yeah. So he's staying there helping him build it. So we're going by. We'll learn a bunch from that. And they got the machines going. And I mean, this is happening right, not later. Plus, we have the geodesic dome machine, so we're incorporating that in. And we have the engineering that's being done. And we found an engineering firm that will certify these if anybody gives a crap about getting a permit. And they're certified in 50 states and 37 countries. So, we pay a one-time like $7,000 fee, and then it's kind of a stamp fee for anybody else, blah, 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 blah. So I'm dead freaking serious about this, Brian. And what do we need? We need to have the communication thing, because then if you don't, you're isolated and they can turn you off.
Right. Yeah, no, you're totally right, and that's something we're definitely going to be working on. I know we'll be reporting back. I do just want, kind of thinking into the future, and after looking at your Pirate Ship virtual tour, this is the thing that's always underlying for all of these kinds of discussions for me. When we talk about battery technology, when we talk about communications, when we talk about all kinds of things, to be able to say to live outside of the system on Earth, I always feel like all of this is just training us for what we'll need to do to live in space, when we actually can get to the stars, when we can actually go to other planets and so on. Like, these are the inroads, the first steps, the baby steps of what it's going to be like living there. And that's the part that always excites me too. Getting all these processes efficient, getting all these technologies worked out to where they're resilient is so key, not just here, to withstand oppression, but also to be able to, have us ready for, in the future when, because I think we are going to get to the stars.
It's going to be social. Everything's going to be, how's your social structure? Who's in charge? Yeah,
absolutely.
Is it Battlestar Galactica Adama? Is it, Babylon 5 Captain whatever the hell? Is it, Anarchy on the High Seas of Everybody Leave Me Alone, Serenity, Firefly kind of thing? Is it,
right.
I have no idea. And I just want the freedom to pick whichever the hell one I want and have the technology to do it.
Exactly. Well, the technology will empower the choice, I think. So working on it now is working on it for the future as well. It's all preparation, and I love it.
Well, that's one of the things, this is generational. Oh, you'll dig this. There's a thing called, I just found out about this, and, Corbett knew about it for a couple of years. And it was on my Telegram. Somebody sent it, and it was Google Ledger or something. Have you heard of this?
Yeah. Yes. This is getting into like the digital DNA, right?
Yeah. Pardon me?
This is getting into digital DNA, right?
Yeah. Digital DNA. They want to track every freaking thing that you've ever done as a likelihood of how your children and your parents were. So when a dissident gets arrested or charged, or they escape or something in China, they go blame your parents because, his DNA digitally or whatever he was doing was because of you, and you let him or made him, and it's your fault, and which is probably true. They'll go, it's nature and nurture. I mean, it's how you're brought up. They find out there's some DNA express gene of William Wallace of won't do what Longshanks and the King says. And so, anybody that has that trait, and, they DNA every baby's prick his heel and put it on a card, and they test everything, and they go, we need to kill that one, that one, that one, and that one. It's kind of like Solomon, King Herod, I think it was, went around killing all the, the baby boys because they wanted to get Jesus kind of deal,
Right.
And so this is the same kind of thing, and they got some AI, whatever there, that's seeing some threat that's manifested in your DNA profile of how you think and who you talk to and what you say and the words and the searches and whatever, and they need a VPN consolidation and the malware guys if we need to know who to kill. I mean, don't laugh, man. I mean, if they can, they sure as hell want to. So I'm looking for the ability to be able to maintain relationships and communication and bypassing them by going above the grid, to be, dwell in the air or in space or on other planets, suck it. So then what do we get? Separate, but they're going to, we have on one of the covers of our easing, it has, one of our spaceships and, our babe there, and we were talking about whatever. And above the door, a little Easter egg, if you zoom in on the door archway, it says, Widget saw Genie. It's kind of like Tan Stoffel, Widget saw Genie. We're going to space and government's not invited. But we always invite them. We're just like, so I think the problem of us having the technology and the ability to leave the controls here, I just don't want to take it with me. We need to flesh it out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, that's the thing, like a lot of that, like Google's, Ledger, digital DNA, all of that is really, it's powered by the cloud, right? By cloud computing and so much, and all that data getting collected. Here's the thing. In outer space, the cloud can't exist. I mean, it just can't. Like speeds, transmission speeds, all of that is non-existent. So if you're looking to, someday live, in outer space, get used to not having access to that stuff. And I think that's a good thing, by the way, because I think the cloud's a horrible thing. So, get used to it now, and you can, and we're going to be testing it out right here on Earth.
Thank you. We do got to worry a little bit. If we can imagine it happens. So when you get Star Trek, light years away and they're talking real time to Starfleet kind of crap, how the hell they subspace communications, they have it. It's quantum communication. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, even that has limitations in like bandwidth.
Yeah. This week.
Yeah. Well said, Ernie.
What we're talking about is you have entangled particles that what happens to one immediately happens to the other, even though it's a light year away. And what they've done, the Chinese, this was already theorized by Einstein. He called it spooky physics at a distance or some crap like that. And what happens is they put a satellite up, and regardless of the distance, it immediately communicated the data by when you have a particles created at the same time with the same event and like laser split photons or whatever, they become entangled, and what you do to one happens to another, even though it's really far away, blah, blah,
right.
Blah, blah,
they
blah,
spin the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's we're screwed. So I just, we're going to have instant communication, and we're going to be like Dune, they're going to fold space, and we're going to be going, the James Webb telescope is, 3 months from now, all of a sudden, all the continuation of government guys just leave and they go to Alpha Sin, what the hell, I don't care. And, so it's not, the technological things will be done, and there's stuff that we can't even imagine probably already available. What I'm looking at is the social aspects of it.
Yes.
How do you create? What do I got to do? What can't I do? What's your conflict resolution? So I don't give a crap how many Marvin the Martian buttons you got that blow away the entire universe kind of crap. I go, yeah, that's all very interesting. How do you punish that guy? I mean, how do you, separate from that guy? How do you, so these are the things that Brian and friends are on the leading edge of there in New Hampshire, and Brian in particular dealing with all the tech to support this stuff. So this is why, as I start getting near the end of our tour and us starting to focus on actually living this, because even when we lived in Phoenix, our compound, for lack of a better term, 2 acres there with geodesic domes and aquaponics and aquadomes and the fish and the chicken, turkey, goats, and our, growing carbon nanotubes in my, nickel iron nanotube batteries with a tube furnace in my barn of, crypto mining rigs and blah, 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 blah. I mean, all of that was testing, developing, learning for what we're going to do in 22. What we're going to do in 22. And what is it? We're going to be living the freedom life that we want above the grid. And one of those things is going to be mesh networking, is going to be incorporated in that. Certainly if you're going to have a community. The energy thing I'm feeling very comfortable with. It was what would cost me 5 years ago $60,000 is now you can do for $10,000-12,000. I am freaking flabbergasted that I get to put that into the actual building of the shelter. Then I find out with aircrete, and we're going to be testing, putting some graphene with it and see if we can do, a lot of other structural stuff with it. And I'm going, well, hell, that it's all of a sudden it's gone down a third of what I was thinking I was going to have to spend. And now it's like, if you can find the land, that's where the cost is going to be. And then you have, crypto hopefully will shoot up again one day. Silver will take off. And then prices and everything else goes down, and the freedom community is like, ha, 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 while everybody else is suffering greatly in the urban areas. We're flourishing in the rural areas, but then you got to worry about security. Then you got to worry about, the GPS coordinates of everybody's grain silo by the man. Then you got to worry about hungry people from the urban areas. Then you got to, it's always comes down to, social interactions, people that produce, be able to protect what they've made. Blah, 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 blah. But it comes down to the technology that empowers the individual and small groups and families. That's where we're going. And that's what James Corbett was talking about, the consolidation. People are going to consolidate around solutions, and those are going to consolidate and buy up all the VPNs to, bypass your solution. That's what's coming. And otherwise, you're just a serf and slave. What are you going to be, Brian?
I'm going to have my own network. So
and I'll buy it.
That's right.
Gosh darn it.
And that's the solution. That's right.
So, on a personal note, let's get updated before we go with, the audience. How you doing? What's keeping you busy in the freer state of New Hampshire, and projects you're working on, and what's the evolution there you think it's happening with all this crap that went over the last year? How do you think New Hampshire's faring?
Well, considering 2020, I feel like personally that New Hampshire has handled it very well. There hasn't been a whole lot of change here. And it's amazingly, I don't feel like it's been in the sights of the news, unlike, say, Florida or Texas at all. And things have just gone on. In my, as far as my own life, certainly, I'm one of those people that kind of just never stops. But Sovryn Tech has been, my show itself has really only grown in audience. I think it's because of what has happened recently, that people are seeing the need for reining in, their technology again. And I'm very happy, about that. But yeah, for me, I am at the same time, also very much just enjoying life. When you have great people around you, when you have a great relationship, when when a lot of the social stuff, you were talking about the social stuff, Ernie, when you have a lot of that kind of worked out, you can breathe a lot easier. And that's what's been going on, I think, a lot up here, is people just getting much tighter knit and, realizing how much, we need to communicate and connect with each other. And because of that, I don't know how much we felt the blows of, what came in 2020 here. So
all I
I'm
need
glad
is
for that.
the air that I breathe and to love you. So, and maybe a little bit of food and some water.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. But there's plenty of that here too. So homegrown.
Yeah, this is, one thing that really came to my mind, and I've been thinking about all this time, is when the education and indoctrination of our children became so bad, when everything's poisoned, when everything's GMO, when everything, whatever benefits you did some mental gymnastics to rationalize why you need to be in the society of the state of the city of something, is going away. And as I just turned 60 this last March, and all of a sudden I get to claim, gray hair old man status. If I've seen cycles 3 or 4 times, I get it, And sure. I go, you spend your entire life raising family, try and save some money. They take it away. They do all kinds of crap happen so that you can have that nice cabin on the lake and retired and piddle around in the garden when you're 60 and, you can hardly bend over and your knees hurt kind of thing or something. And I'm going,
right.
No, you do it when you're 25. You raise your kids up helping you with the garden, and they know what the hell a goat is. They know where their food comes from. They help in the process. You do the barn raising. You go to the square dance on Saturday of whatever the hell. You're Amish or something. I mean, you're living the life that you're working decades and decades towards. You could do it now. Yep. I'm like, what the hell are we waiting on? We've been conditioned and brainwashed into thinking that it comes later. It's something we're going to do later. Get your kids out of the government mandatory youth indoctrination camps now. Teach them, like Jay does, man camp. I mean, somebody needs, hell, I go, what about women? He goes, a woman is just a man with a womb. And I go, okay, so the logo is a woman, on the man camp thing. So I'm just going, yeah, hell yeah, we need to learn these things. And this is where I think it's not that we, abandon in tech. It's not that we abandon, machine advantage. It's not we're going to not use heavy equipment. It's not like we're not, hell yeah. But I don't want, Alexa running my world when I could have Jarvis as my own personal AI and do what the hell oh, shut up, Alexa. Cancel.
There it goes.
Alexa, stop. God. Son of a bitch, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah. No, I mean, I think the thing 2020 taught everybody, like, the system's just broken. Like, it's just broken. And you have to like rely on yourself and family and friends. And that's all you've got, and that's what I see happening. And ultimately, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you're there. It's been too long that you and I have not got to just talk and hang, and anything we say to each other is worthy of everybody listening anyway. So what the
absolutely.
Hell? But we'll get you. Yeah, it's been a while. God, it's been at least a year or two, and but I mean we know what each other's doing and got common friends and everything. So it's not,
we're always keeping an eye on each other.
Yeah, we always know what's up. But I committed. I got it up, and we just had bandwidth problems. Me trying to do it, so we put a woe on that. But I got my the man's credit card out and debit, whatever. And I'm going to go ahead and order these Meshtastics. Have them sent directly to you, and we will look forward to. I don't know how long you need. End of the year, playing around next month. What do you think?
Yeah, I like end of the year. I think that's a good test because we'll do it a few different ways. Yeah.
Yeah. This is, because this is the beginning. This is early in this. This has been something everybody's been screaming about, but I'm just like, yeah, whatever. It comes out of China. What else? Whatever doesn't, But the goal is the same, and that's one thing that I keep hammering on. Everybody wants to do community. Derek Bros and Miriam going around and John Bush, and they're really pushing for another one. They're going to be, they got a place and real estate agents and whatever pushing, they're going to go Texas, Mm-hmm. So I'm like, cool. What do I got to do? What can I do? Which conflict resolution? So it's going to come down. I think what's going to happen is what I encouraged, from the beginning. Free State Project. They marketed doing that at our Freedom Summits before the state was even picked. The day after the selection for New Hampshire we had Amanda Phillips, I think it was, came on my live show out of Scottsdale in 2003. It was February, March of 2003 to announce it was New Hampshire. We did our only Freedom Summit outside of Arizona in Manchester a year or two later just to help promote, what was going on there. So I've been covering it and following it from the beginning. And the thing is that my first question to her was this. So, what's your secret handshake? You going to have a clubhouse? Is it going to central command? You got, I got to swear allegiance to whatever. I mean, how are you going to do this, And so there's been some of that. But a lot of it has been people just being around like-minded people and just leave me aloneism. Yep. So I am more for going and sponsoring the local Little League team, having all the kids, learn about using crypto to go to the pizza place that they go after the game with their parents, and it just by osmosis, just being there and living free, being a voluntarist, showing how this works and growing food and helping your neighbor and, and mowing the old lady's lawn and picking her pumpkins. And I mean, you do that and all of a sudden it just happens. Well, do I want to have this little walled off community, we got to walk the wall kind of thing, and your turn to shoot the next guy that walks to your front gate? Or do you just have a couple of acres in a community along with a bunch of other people, and it just kind of grows into a freedom-oriented live free or die state? This is what's coming. I guarantee it. And the bad guys are not wanting that to naturally, spontaneously come to pass. So what are they going to do? Whatever they have to. And the biggest thing is to know what they got to do via surveillance. And this is what's coming. So how far off am I, Brian?
No, I think you're right on the money. And I think that is the solution is coming, but then also the man certainly doesn't like solutions. So
that's a t-shirt. The man doesn't like solutions. Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, right on.
I want that hoodie. Anything else, Brian? Go ahead and give out real quick your webpage. You can go say hello.
Sure, yeah. So again, sovryntech.com, SOVRYN, tech.com. And there is a lot to see there and a lot to listen to. And we're working on those solutions that the man doesn't like.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and turn on your video. I want to see you say goodbye to.
Sure thing, man.
This has been a lot of fun catching up with you. I just,
Same.
glad that we get to, just say hey, because, I got to open my thing. Just to get caught up, because I think we're all on the same page. I knew we were. And this is it was fortuitous. I wanted to talk to you about, some of the other things, what you're doing, get caught up, say, what's up, and the VPN thing.
Sure.
And then it just, the God, the forces of all that is good or something, put this in front of us that I can get and we can work this out. That's awesome. So thanks to Bob Anderson for, sending that to us. And let's work on it, because this is something that and I asked him, I go, where did you find this? How did you get this? And he goes, I was just up and, piddling around and boom. And I go, oh, it's only because he knows the right questions. You start following
right.
Here it comes. So this has been a great conversation. We'll leave it there. But, I look forward to seeing you again, and we'll talk soon. All right, buddy?
Absolutely, Ernie. Always an honor. Always appreciate it.
All right. Peace, brother. Bye.
Peace.